What's up, dude?
What is up? Happy whatever hell day it is today. I don't know. I know it's in the holidays, or in the push of holidays. How's that
We're in
going
the swing
for you?
of it now. It's going fine. I mean, the weather is finally really cold. Like,
Frightful.
yeah, I mean, it's not snowing or anything yet. You know, we're not into like the real bad weather. Why is my camera so dark? One second here.
Oh, good. We got a little
The
bit.
second we hit record, it just went super dark compared to you. Weird. But yeah, it's yeah, we'll have some snow probably before too long. But yeah, just been really cold, like in the 20s, you know.
Oh, God.
Parts of the country and the world probably think of that as a nice springtime sort of situation, but I'm still very much a California kid. And yeah, 20 degrees is cold to me.
Well, I mean, you do get a full run of all your hoodie collection because between you and your wife, I'm sure you have a pretty significant collection of hoodies, I would say. I want to go on a limb, but I think you probably got 20 between the both of you. I'm guessing.
Oh, way more than that.
Way more than that? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have as many as you might think, but Michaela has a lot of hoodies. But I was of the same mentality as you. I thought, okay, cool. Like when the weather gets cold, it's hoodie season. It's too cold to wear hoodies here. Like they basically don't get any use. We keep the apartment warm enough that, like, yeah, I mean, you can wear a hoodie inside if you want. I end up always getting hot, usually if I'm wearing one. But then to go outside, it's way too cold to wear a hoodie. You need like a proper jacket. And, you know, as we get further into the season, I'll need gloves too, because it gets to the point where just taking my dog out at night, like my hands will be very cold by the time I get in. So it's nice to have a pair of gloves to keep them warm.
This might be a different podcast for us, but does your wife find it necessary to put her dead cold hands on you when she's been outside? She'll just immediately shove them into your stomach or your back to warm up her hands. Maybe you enjoy that. I have found that over the course of my 20-something years with Lisa, that her hands are so freaking cold that she'll go outside to have done, like the other day, she went out to bring the trash cans back in. And it was, you know, it's like 40 here.
Yeah.
But still coming in, I'm all got the blanket on, watching TV, sitting on the couch. And she comes in and immediately goes, you know, just to my bare chest. And I'm like, God, it's like having ice cubes on me. I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, I need the warmth. I got to have the warmth right now. I'm like, there's a blanket here. And there's other places where you could
There's
find
other ways to, yeah, you
know,
got a dog. That's what the dog's for.
Yeah, it's not like the Titanic scene, you know, where we're all trying to keep each other warm.
Yeah.
Real life is like, dang, girl, stop. Just warm yourself up. I'm trying to figure this out. I kid.
Yeah, she does not do that to me. I do that to her, but not because I'm trying to get warmed up. I tolerate the cold pretty well.
Yeah.
Like, it's a lot of things in life I've realized are a state of mind. And so if you can just acknowledge the fact that you are cold, but not fight it.
Right.
It's like people who don't tolerate the cold well, I feel like all they're doing is focusing on, it's like panic mode. Like, I have to get out of the cold. It's like, just be cold for a minute. And yeah, I mean, there's limits to everything, right? I'm not saying
of course
you can be in Siberia and just think warm thoughts. Although it seems like maybe some people can. But yeah, it's like, look, you're going to take the dog out. It's going to be 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It's fine.
You're going to be cold. You'll be okay.
Just breathe and relax And when you get back inside, it'll be warm and you'll warm up.
Mm-hmm.
And it might take you 10, 15 minutes to, thaw out, but you'll be all
Yeah.
right.
Well, at least you
So
haven't
I don't
hit
know.
any of the snows. Obviously you see all the weather and all the crazy blizzards and,
Yeah.
people getting in accidents and, all that kind of stuff that come around the holidays, especially having to drive in that stuff. I don't miss it. That's the one thing about East Coast that I don't miss at all. It I like seeing it in a picture. Snow's
Yeah.
pretty, and like we both been to Tahoe, so I know, there's that whole winter wonderland kind of thing.
Yeah.
But living in it and having to deal with it and the black ice and the rust on your car and all that BS, nope,
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah.
I don't need it. Just keep me warm, nice sun, most of the year. I'll be all right. We do have the occasional earthquakes, of course. We've been getting a lot of those more recently, though. They've been popping
Yeah.
up quite a bit. So every place has got its thing,
Yeah. There's no perfect situation,
Not
And
no.
California is about as close as it gets to a perfect weather situation. But as you mentioned,
Yeah.
you still have earthquakes and stuff like that.
Yeah, you're still
Uh,
going to have stuff to contend with.
Having been here a little more than a year now, I don't really have an issue with the weather. Like, yeah, it storms a lot compared to California, but I sort
Mhm.
of already feel like I have gotten used to that.
Yeah.
And it snows, but it's like we're not far enough north to get crazy snow.
Mhm.
So it's going to snow like 2 or 3 times, most likely. So it's enough that it's kind of fun. And
Right.
like for a couple of days, you avoid driving
Right.
if you can.
Right.
And otherwise, it's just cold,
Yeah. Have a
And
little sled, find a little hill somewhere to
oh yeah,
slide on
kids
and
are
that
doing
kind of
that.
stuff.
Like
Yeah.
outside my studio window here, there's a
Mhm.
decent little hill, especially if you're a kid. And
Right.
they were out there last year with their
Yeah.
toboggans and whatever kind of stuff. And to me, that's fun. Like it
Yeah.
mixes it up enough, but I'm not dealing with like having to shovel driveways and like all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's not like being in the New England
Buffalo.
area or
Yeah.
Buffalo. It's nothing
Yeah.
like that. Chicago.
Yeah.
So we get a little bit of it, and then we're not far enough east to where we don't have to deal with hurricanes.
Mhm.
We're not like coastal. So yeah, I mean thunderstorms. That's about the worst that it is, and it rains a lot more.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's pretty tolerable
fine.
in this area
Yeah.
for the most part.
Given all the stuff that's given all the good and everything else, it just it's just what you expect. Like, okay, cool. Now I know what to contend with, and then you just acclimate to it and get used to it.
Yeah, around this time last year, there were a couple storms that freaked me out
Mhm.
because I was like, normally I wouldn't think twice about it. A storm is a storm, like whatever. But
Mhm.
they were pretty brutal storms,
Mhm.
and like tornado warnings and all that. It
Oh
was like
yeah.
every night it
Yep.
was going off like an Amber Alert, like
Yep.
every hour. So I'm just taking inventory because I'm like, we're in the middle of this storm, and I'm looking outside, and I'm going, okay, this is bad.
Yeah,
And
it
I don't know
looks
how.
like black sky, and oh yeah, it get
Well,
really
yeah,
ugly.
and the wind is crazy high,
Crazy. Yeah.
and I'm going, I'm brand new to this area. Like, if we
Mhm.
had to evacuate and get out of here, I don't even know where to go. So then I started having all those feelings of like,
Yeah.
I brought my family out here. I'm responsible for them.
Mm-hmm.
And so the like stress of that, if I was by
Yeah.
myself, I would have just been like, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
but you're
Yeah.
losing power and you're huddled up and the wind is whipping.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going, man, what did I do? I don't know where I'm gonna go if we even needed to shelter somewhere. Like,
What do we
if
do?
we had an issue. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we don't know anybody out here. So, I mean, we do now, but,
Right. But still.
but, at that point it's like, well, I mean, I don't know what we're going to do if we run into trouble.
Yeah. Those are all the growing up in Florida, hurricane parties were always like, I mean, when I was older, those are always the fun thing. You know, it's like, oh, we're going to have a hurricane coming through. So everybody just, you know, meets up at a house, and it's basically just an excuse to drink and eat, you know, and have fun and be silly.
Yeah.
Um,
Cut
and getting
loose.
caught. Yeah. Until, you know, they're fun until they aren't. And getting caught in one of those a little bit, um, they can be pretty terrifying, you know? You're
Yeah.
like,
Oh
"Oh,
yeah.
crap, the tornado tore off the half a little corner of the house that I was in for one of those hurricane parties." And then
Yeah.
it gets real serious real quick, and you're like, "Ooh,
Everyone gets
we
sobered up real fast.
we dodged a bullet." Yeah, walking into
Yeah.
this bedroom and seeing a hole in the bedroom going
Mhm.
out to the yard, and everything on that corner of the house that was just destroyed. You're like, "Oh, damn.
Then you just
Okay."
hear someone, "Have you guys seen Jim?
Yeah.
Oh God, where's Jim? Tug,
Tug,
Yeah.
Tug, Tug. Exactly.
That reference probably will go over people's heads, but
That's all good.
yeah, that's a little MacGruber for you.
Yeah.
Tug.
Oh my goodness.
So good.
Well, holidays, I mean, Thanksgiving was good. It kind of brought me into something I told you. There's a couple things I was, you know, looking around over the holidays, and um we can kind of kick into a little bit of that. Like Nuno Betancourt, um, who I've always admired quite a bit. I know you have too, to some degree. Um, my great friend Greg, who is a guitarist, passed away a few years ago. Um, he and I were both kind of grew up on Extreme and were really big fans of theirs, right?
Yeah.
So we had a good connection with them. And then, of course, they kind of get back together. He took a hiatus from them for a while because he was just exhausted from doing it, and he joined back up. It's I don't know what that last record they did 2 or 3 years ago,
Yeah, a couple
or
years
maybe
ago,
not even that
probably.
long. Yeah, maybe 2 years, 3 years ago. And he kind of got Rick Beato brought him up a bit because he had a solo on that record that was just tearing everyone's heads off. All these guitar players are just so blown away, and Nuno is a virtuosic guitar player, probably
Yeah.
like Eddie, and you know he's in the conversation. Let's just put it that way. Um, and of course he did the tribute. He was asked to play at the tribute shows for Ozzy, the Back to the Beginning shows, and so he's gotten a lot of. He's shown up a lot more recently here. Anyway, I had no idea, but apparently in Hudson, Massachusetts, where he's basically his home. He grew up in or was born in Portugal, but lived there in Hudson for a long time. In his
He's
hometown, I
from
guess every
Portugal?
year.
I thought he was
Yeah,
from Brazil for
it's
some reason.
Portuguese. I believe I could have that screwed up. I tried to do a little bit of research today, so it's coming with some intellect, but I could be
Yeah.
wrong. But I think I was
I thought he was from
Portugal.
Brazil. Yeah. Weird.
Anywho, like we always say, look it up. We don't know. We use the Google machine.
Yeah. Please don't take our word for anything.
God no. Anywho, so he does, and his family apparently is pretty musical as well. So he has got a lot of nieces, nephews, brothers, sisters, so forth, that kind of put together their own little Betancourt band, and they have special guests, of course. You know, people that have played in bands that he knows and so forth that kind of come, and they call it a turkey jam. And they do it at this Portuguese center there in Hudson, Massachusetts, and have done it, I guess, for a couple of years now. And he comes out, and I found it just by accident because I'm always looking at YouTube and looking for stuff that's coming out or new videos or whatever. And I saw some clips of this, and I'm like, God, this guy can play the phone book. I mean, he covered so many different, just cool songs that some you might anticipate them doing. Like he covered Panama, which was great.
Yeah.
I'm more focused on him. Of course, he's got different people singing, and in comments, people were like, "Wow, I don't know if he sounded like Dave." I'm like, "Who cares? They're just having fun." I don't,
Yeah.
it's almost like a karaoke jam with a live band. Like he
Yeah.
just have different people coming up and singing. But they did "Immigrant Song,"
Mm.
and one of my favorite ones. We talked about this I think before, but like one of my favorite Journey songs off Escape record was "Stone in Love."
Yeah.
One of the craziest cool guitar solos that Neil Sean played on that record. And so what always impresses me is like when I see famous musicians or musicians that I love and I see them doing covers of other artists that we probably both mutually like, and they just have such an adoration for it and a respect for it that they learn it and it's pretty note for note. And Nuno is definitely a student in that way to me. He just came with it. And I'm like, I'm listening to him shred that solo on Stone in Love. And I was like, God, dang, this guy is so good. And having such a great time, just up there. And I'm sure it doesn't seem like it almost looks like a banquet hall. It doesn't seem like it's probably that big. I'm assuming maybe there's a couple hundred people there at most. But cell phone footage of the event. They did I guess it was so popular and it sold out so quick that they did 2 nights. So there's a host of songs and stuff that they did, but I mean, they covered they're doing somebody that I used to know, that song that came out a few years ago, Gautier. Yeah. They covered that.
Yeah.
They covered Keep On Running, I think, or the REO Speedwagon song. Like it's just all over. Like he did Wonderwall, I think. He covered that. So yeah, if you're imagining this guy who could pretty much play anything, he's just like, yeah, let's do that. Let's have this song. They did Man in the Box with the dude from Godsmack, funny enough.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Which I thought was kind of funny. I don't know if he was the drummer or is the drummer in Godsmack, but he's also a great singer. I don't follow that band, so I'm not too familiar.
Yeah, me
But if
either.
y'all look it up, you can see who it was. I didn't know if I sent you a couple of those videos, but I didn't know if you had a chance of watching any of them. But it just, I'm just a big fan of players, I think, and and we all do this a lot. We watch people like that doing songs. And I always felt like that. I've always been attracted to bands that will cover other artists, not necessarily for commercial gain, but they're like, you'll see this footage of people in the studio and they're just messing around. They're like, oh, let's play this, this song that we love. And they're just having a good time. And you can see sort of the same spark. It's like if you and I learn a cover, the fun that we get of being able to take something down, the accomplishment of it, but also the kind of living in the shoes of that band or that artist for a moment in time, just to try and pull off what they did. Um, there's a just kind of playfulness about it and a funness about it. And I always say you get better as a musician by learning to play covers. That's not I mean, your whole town there in Nashville is a lot of people doing that very thing every single day of the week.
Yeah.
Um,
Everywhere you
and
go.
they build their skill by doing that. And, of course they do their originals and all that kind of stuff too. But anyway, I always just find it fun. You just see kind of a twinkle in their eye when they're getting to play songs from artists that I'm sure they grew up and admired, and being able to kind of accomplish it and pull it off is a cool thing. So I had a good time kind of watching some of those videos. And, I knew I was like, I want to talk to you about that and see what your familiarity was with him. I just realized too that he just opened, I guess he just has his own guitars now. The Washburn guitar that he used to sort of, he had a specialty guitar, I think, that came out in his heyday. I think it was made in partnership with Washburn, who's no longer in existence. They went out of business, I think. Yeah. I'm not screwing that up.
I don't know.
They don't know.
Yeah, I haven't followed Washburn in a while.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, they were not a predominant brand, even kind of in their heyday.
Yeah, a bit niche, I think, but
Just
he seemed
a
to have
smaller company.
Yeah, seemed to have a love for him, and they built this really great guitar that he played on for a long time. But now apparently, I think he has his own guitars now, or he's doing his own guitar thing called Nuno Guitars. And I don't know if he is building them. Like I learned several months back that George Lynch actually is building his own guitars in his like a workshop that he has at his home now. So
Mm,
you can literally go and buy a George Lynch guitar made by George himself, which is also obviously pretty cool, knowing how much I love that
yeah.
guy. So I didn't know. Anyway, do you know a lot about him, or did you ever listen to Extreme, or you just kind of heard about him in the guitar legends, if you will?
Yeah, more the latter. I was never really an Extreme fan. I don't dislike them.
Mm,
I tend like I'll hear about a guitar player and I'll check out a band that a guitar player is in, and I'll almost always appreciate that player. Like Nuno is an amazing player.
mhm,
But then what keeps me hooked is the singer usually.
mm,
And I don't have an issue with extreme singers. I'm not trying to throw shade, but
yeah.
they also never really did much for me in that way either. So
Mm,
I'm kind of like a casual listener in that respect. I've always been that way where like it doesn't matter how cool the music is. If the singer doesn't totally scratch an itch for me,
mhm,
I don't I don't hang around very long, and
mm,
unfortunately, that was kind of extreme for me.
yeah.
Brilliant players clearly have
Oh
written
yeah.
some amazing songs too,
Yeah.
and it was cool checking out their new record because they really just like burst back onto the scene in a big way. I
Mhm,
know a lot of people were
mhm,
excited about that, so
mhm.
so that was really cool to see, and the playing and all that. Um, but yeah, I mean that's kind of where it ended for me. But I like hearing you talk about his whole what they call it, turkey jam.
Yeah. Turkey Jam. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean that's a cool. It's a really cool idea because I I don't know. I find myself falling into this, and certainly historically I have, where as a musician, it's easy to get kind of caught up in spending your time chasing things that aren't songs.
Mhm,
You know, you kind of miss the forest for the trees in like working on a scale or
mhm.
noodling or just playing a little riff of a thing that you think is cool that's like a microscopic part of the whole, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And remembering that the reason why we all enjoy music is the songs,
Mhm,
you know? And so if you like, look at myself and go, man, how many songs do I know front to back? Going, oh
mhm,
man, okay, well that's a good challenge. You
mhm,
mentioned Nashville. This is a town that is all about songs
mhm.
and is one of the few places that still will record songs front to back with the whole band.
Yep.
Whereas most places nowadays, everything is done a piece at a time, and
Mhm.
people are oftentimes not even in the same room. Um,
Yeah.
you'll have a drummer in LA and then a guitar player from wherever, you know,
Mhm,
Dropbox in their stuff and a singer from somewhere else. And
mhm,
there's nothing wrong with any of that, but there is something special about people performing a song,
mhm,
and I think it is a lot of fun when it's some of your hero songs and you get to
mhm,
perform that music. Um, your day job, so to speak, in his case, extreme, they're not going to go out and play Stone in Love every night or
no.
Immigrant Song or some of these other
Right.
tunes that you
Right.
mentioned. So it's got to be really fun to be able to just like cut loose and play a bunch of songs that you love that the audience is going to love because everyone
Mhm.
loves those songs. They're great songs.
Yeah.
And he's got the chops to do it all, so that's got to be a really fun experience just to be like, yeah, we're just going to go have fun. And
Yeah. There was when I lived in Los Angeles and we would frequent what was left of the sort of sunset scene at that time. And again, remember this is probably early 2000, like 2002, 2003 ish. There was a cool station that was, I think it was Indie 103.1 or something like that. Anyway, they had a lot of and this is going to transition into another thing, but they had a thing on there called Camp Freddy Radio, and I believe Dave Navarro was sort of the host of that show, and he would have his buddies like Slash, Matt Sorum, Scott Weiland, different folks that he knew in and around town, if you will, that would show up on the show, but then they would also kind of take it out and they would play um, the Roxy, I think it was, that's right next to Rainbow there. And again, I don't know if that club's still there, if it's changed, but whatever. Point is, usually once or twice a month, they would do a whole jam. And it was open to the public, so people could buy tickets and come down. And I think they donated the money. I don't remember if it was for a cause or something like that. I think it was, but they would just get random people would just show up that often were in other bands. Like you'd have the bass player from the Goo Goo Dolls, and it'd be Slash, and you'd have Dave there, or you'd have Matt typically playing drums, but you'd have other people showing up to sing, like Scott would sing, or you'd have Dave would sometimes sing, or, Perry would show up. Like all these different people would just kind of go, but they weren't doing their own tunes. They were covering other people. Like you'd hear them get together and like, hey, do you know Shout It Out Loud? They're like, sure, let's, so, and they'd end up doing like a Kiss song, or they would, Aerosmith or something, their idols, right? So it's kind of an inception in a way. Like I'm going to see these folks because I have an adoration for them. They're playing songs from their heroes and doing covers, and it's just a good time. It's really fun. I really enjoyed that kind of thing, and I always love. I don't know what it is about that, but it's like just again being able to see different artists, and it doesn't even matter if I'm really a big fan. I actually caught a clip the other day of Train covering "Moving Out," and you know me, I'm a massive Billy Joel fan, and grew up learning piano with Billy's music. So them covering Anthony's song "Moving Out" just as a warm up before they go and play. That was just like a song that they wanted to do in the room together. You're seeing the whole band just in a little rehearsal space behind stage somewhere, and they're playing that song. And he did a great job. I'm not a massive fan of Train, but I'm like, oh, that was kind of cool to see them do that. Radiohead, long time ago, covers a Joy Division song, and seeing them be able to play that song, and it was in their practice space. They just happened to record it, and it ends up online. And you see Tom York playing and singing the song, and I don't know how to describe this. For anyone who listens to this, go and look up that video. But there's just an expression and a thing in his face where he's channeling his feeling as a teenager, probably listening to Joy Division. And that same sort of feeling, he's feeling it now because he's learned it, and he's evoking that childlike feeling of hearing that song probably for the first time. You catch it in his expressions when you're seeing him, and it's like there's just something really special about that. And watching Nuno the other night on some of those videos, you can tell that he's just having fun. It's super loose. Nothing's perfect. It's like a garage band just basically getting together and having fun and jamming, and those things are very precious to me. You and I being able to be in a space and write that way is very cool. Like we joked about like Friday Night Lights in a way, because it was Friday nights, we'd both be off work or whatever, early into us starting to write together, and we'd get together at either one of the houses that I lived in and just start working on stuff. And we've covered tunes or attempted to cover songs from other artists as well along the way.
Oh yeah.
You know, and there is that sense of enjoyment of doing that. I have I've just really appreciated it. You talked about singers and if you're not fully into a singer, sometimes it makes it hard to really get bought into the band. Gary Sharon, of course,
Yeah.
the singer of Extreme, being that example that you mentioned. But I'm reflecting back because there was another thing I know I brought up to you in the text the other night. So I guess it was yesterday was 10 years since Scott Weiland's passing.
Mm.
And this is one that I think, given our history together, I never really knew where you landed. I felt like when, you know, as people get to know each other as friends and brothers and musical partners, you and I have clearly rubbed off musical talent and taste on one another. I
Yeah.
was not going to be an Avenged Sevenfold fan until you turned me on to them and I understood sort of where they're coming from.
Mm.
And there have been other artists. I think we both our friend probably turned us on to Ryan Adams, and we learned about Ryan through a mutual friend
Yeah.
of ours, Greg.
Yep.
Maybe fair to say that I pulled you into the era of Tom Petty and got you kind of there in that space. And there's some where you're just like, I'm not doing it. I can't do it. Like I've tried for a better part of a decade to get you to love Pearl Jam as much as I do. And I've accepted the fact that that's just not going to happen. Not in the way that I would anticipate, even though I think that they have a talent and they're great musicians. It's just not something that gets you excited or out of bed, right?
One of these days it'll probably happen, but
Yeah.
as of today,
As of today, it is
yeah,
not happening yet.
yeah, Pearl Jam
Yeah.
just isn't my thing.
No, but I'll put that out there because I think there was a place you and I have talked about, Scott, and again, no surprise, I'm a big lover of Stone Temple Pilots. I was not as much of a fan of Velvet Revolver. And I think it was just because I was always so precious about the original band. So when that sort of era of supergroups came out, and I felt the same way early on about Audioslave, it took me a bit to really kind of come around to that because I love Soundgarden and Rage. So
Right.
the whole thing was kind of weird. Seeing the entire band of Guns N' Roses with Scott was just a head trip for me. So
Yeah,
because it
that's
wasn't
understandable.
STP and it wasn't Guns N' Roses. And so I'm just like, this is really kind of strange. But over the better part of our 12 or 13 years of knowing one another, I feel like you might have come around a little bit more to Scott and to STP. I'm not want to speak out of turn, but I feel like there might have been a point early on where you're like, nah, I don't really care for that guy. I don't really think of him much. I don't really consider him to be a good singer necessarily. And I could be speaking out of turn, so you're going to have to correct this if I am. But as we've gone on, I do feel like you've kind of found an appreciation for what he was and what he did and his approach to music in general. But any thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely. I never had an issue with Scott and his voice. I've always been a fan of his singing. Now, it's funny how you described your relationship to Velvet Revolver. They were more of my entry point to him as a singer. And, I mentioned struggling with the band if I don't love the singer. There are a handful of examples of singers that have grown on me over time. So, like, for example, early on, I didn't like Axl's singing voice. So hearing GNR with a different singer was actually a huge bonus for me because
That is interesting.
I got to get into Slash. There's a lot of great songs. Scott's a really good singer. So I loved Velvet Revolver when it came out because I could get into it more than I could GNR initially.
That's going to be the same conversation we're going to have about Miles Kennedy in just a minute, but let's finish this this thought on this one because I will go there. But yeah, this is interesting, please.
Yeah, I mean, but it's like that with like I said, there's a handful of bands that I didn't like the singer initially that over time I got it. Tom Petty's another one. I think we probably have talked about this on the podcast before, but Tom Petty was one. Who's another one? Dave Mustaine. You know, so singers that I understand now and I appreciate what they do, and I totally love the bands. But it took me some time, you know. Like in high school, if you asked me to choose between Metallica and Megadeth, I'm going, well, that's easy. It's Metallica
right.
all day because they have the better
Right.
singer.
Mm-hmm.
I think probably a lot of people are that way. It's like the singer is an carries more of a ratio to the rest of the band in terms of like, you know. Yeah, so I didn't get into STP right away. My issue with Scott, and this may be where you got this feeling, is I always when I was growing up, I really struggled with him as a person. And since my perspective has matured a lot on how I look at him, I have a lot more empathy for his life now than I did when I was a teenager and in my early 20s. I projected a lot of my own desire to succeed and frustration. I looked at him as with very little empathy because I thought, how dumb do you have to be to not be able to clean up your act when you are living the dream that I would love? I would do anything to be in the position that you're in, but you're in that position and you're throwing it all away. You know, this is like during the time where even Velvet Revolver was on hiatus or broke up or whatever, and he was really struggling with, you know, addiction and all this stuff. And hearing stories about him, like, you know, seizing on an airplane and like different stuff like that. And I'm thinking, man, how could you get in that position? Like, I would do almost anything to be in your position. So it's frustrating watching someone that is doing what you want to do seemingly just not give it the I don't know, like the respect that it deserves, you know?
Right.
And of course that's a perspective of a young man, you know, someone who's immature, who hasn't really seen what addiction can be like for people, and what so many times those kind of things are born out of trying to deal with things that you didn't expect you're going to have to deal with when it comes to the lifestyle that, and I don't mean the partying, I just mean like the expectations and the constant touring and the pain and the not being able to sleep and like all these different things, that, you know, you look at it from the outside and you go, it's glamorous. They get to play music every night. They're on the radio. Everyone knows who they are. What else could you want? Well, maybe after, you know, 10 years, a good night's rest might be nice,
or just
a
quiet meal, you know, without being interrupted by fans who you have to then keep continuing to turn that on and be a kind and generous person, because you do understand sort of the exchange of it all. But that has to be a lot, you know, for somebody, an artist for sure, who struggle
dealing
anyway.
dealing with your own mind, you know. I think that's a big part of it too. And I didn't really understand that when I was younger, you know, because you kind of think when you're young, you just assume that one day you're going to grow out of some of that stuff. You know, it's like, oh, one day I'm going to be fully an adult and then I'm just going to be stable, you know, and it's like
a switch.
Well, yeah, like, because that's what happens to a lot of other aspects of your life. You know, you're a teenager and you're going, well, I'm going to get taller and I'm going to get, you know, more muscular. I'm going to get, you know, better at this or that. I'm going to learn how to drive. I'm going to, you know, it's like all these things kind of fall into place with some time. It all kind of gets worked out. Right.
Yeah.
But something like your own mind is something that gives a lot of people a hard time. being able to turn that off. So anyway, I digress a little bit, but my perspective on him really changed. I used to be hard on Scott, not because I didn't like his voice, because I always thought he was a really good singer. That was part of what made me like him even less, is like, he's such a good singer. He's such a phenomenal talent. How could he be throwing it all away like this? And, since I've changed on that big time. And then my other thing too is like, I kind of, there are probably two reasons for this. One was like being really sheltered as a kid. I think once I was old enough to be making my own choices in what I was listening to, I had missed so much. And so I was really trying to play catch up on like what's happening right now. And then the other thing too is like, I don't know, maybe because I was born in 1990, so I grew up in the 90s. Although I'm a bit young through most of it, right? It's like when some of my favorite records in the 90s are coming out, I'm like 4 years old. But still, all that stuff was happening around that time that I'm growing up. And I think, I don't exactly know why. I think probably because by the time, I'm a teenager, and let's say like I'm 14 in 2004. So by 2004, the 90s had come to full fruition, and now it was like everything was a weird knockoff of stuff that had happened in the 90s. And that kind of caricature became what I wanted to get away from, because it all just felt bad. I know you felt that way about Creed. That's still why I think of Pearl Jam as something that I can't stomach, is not because Pearl Jam is bad. And this is the bad part for them in my book, is it has nothing to do with them. But it has to do with the fact that there are so many Eddie Vedder knockoffs and wannabes and bad representations of that. I feel like I've had my fill on that kind of thing, but it's all like, it's like I OD'd on McDonald's instead of like, it's like, well, you could go have this good cheeseburger. And I'm like, yeah, true that. And that might be a good version of a cheeseburger, but I've had too many of these terrible cheeseburgers. I'm not interested in that. Maybe one day I will get my taste for it again. So the 90s kind of represented that whole kind of thing for me. And so it took me quite a long time to start going back to that time period and trying to check out stuff that that was really important during that time, that maybe I had some awareness of, some familiarity with, but I didn't really know it the way that I did like kind of 2000s on. So it's going back to, all the grunge bands, Nirvana and Soundgarden, and STP has kind of honestly been one of the more recent ones. Like I always knew a good chunk of their music, but going a lot deeper in the catalog has happened in the last 2 or 3 years. And they're a cool band in the sense that you could say this, I suppose, about pretty much all the grunge bands. But they have a really diverse catalog.
Yes.
And I really love that when a band, like I always think about Queen as being kind of the epitome of this, but you could say the same thing going back further. You could, look at the Beatles or the Stones, even Beatles more than the Stones, but yeah, where they're like Queen, I always felt like was that perfect band where you could have, if you listen through their greatest hits album, so many of those songs could be from totally different bands today.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And that's so cool.
It's crazy to me. Yeah.
It's like, whereas at some point, I think, whether it was record labels or whatever, marketing people, it's like, well, hey, if there's a more coherent sort of theme, it's easier to market, or easy to sell it if we know exactly what it is. It needs to have an identity, or it needs to be whatever it needs to be. I think that's the first mistake. Anytime you're saying art needs to be something, you're probably headed down the wrong path.
Yeah.
unless it's your artistic vision for what it needs to be.
Right.
But it's like it's hard to find bands like that now, at least popular bands that have a diverse catalog. They often, you get pigeonholed by your own success or by expectations or whatever. And STP is a good example of a band that really had some range in a really cool way, I think.
Yeah. You initially think of them, at least from my introduction to that, you already are getting Alice in Chains. Facelift is out. You're probably gotten the EP. Sap has already come out by this point. Stone Temple Pilots starting to get a little bit of a fever, starting to get popular. They do Sex Type Thing. That's a big hit on MTV. Controversial song, given the subject matter. And you're like, okay, this feels like a grungy song. And I'm sure for a record label who heard them play and saw them, they're like, okay, we can market this band. They have a little bit of dark thing like Alice in Chains does.
Yeah.
They have a really cool singer. They obviously at that point in their career, they all sort of look very similar. It's like the baggy white t-shirt and jeans and bleached out hair and all that kind of
Spiky
stuff.
hair.
Yeah, all the usual stuff that you find in that time. By the time they get out of the core record into Purple, they are now drawing on a ton of influences from Glenn Campbell to early psychedelic music to there's some Beatles things in there, and you have obviously
definitely. Yeah.
Robert and Dean to Leo that are just phenomenal brothers and really great musicians that listen to a lot of different stuff. But then you got Scott on top of it writing melodies that are, to me, incredibly unique for what the band was. In the hands of somebody else, that doesn't come out nearly in the same way. And they continued, you're right, like Tiny Music, that continues to be a very crazy psychedelic type record,
Yeah, absolutely.
all over the
Yeah.
place. A little bit of time signature things like Pretty Penny or Lady Picture Show. These are really cool deep cuts in the record. You get Four, which I personally love. I felt like that's a record where they just said, we don't care what you think about us. We're going to put our demons out in the open and we're just going to tell you. And so it's a dark record, but in that record, you get Sour Girl, you get, Atlanta, which is one of my favorite songs, which is a beautiful song that the Doors would have done in their day to me.
Totally.
He evokes a Jim Morrison thing about him in that song that's just so beautiful and haunting. So yeah, and then again, he has his solo record stuff. Of course, he has Velvet Revolver, and I came back. I feel like a little bit of the same way. I thought, what wasted talent, you know. I don't know if it's about
and I
the
hate
slow.
even saying that now. It makes me cringe at myself that I felt that way.
Well, because you think of all of them there, we lose Lane for drugs, in a very horrific way. You got Chris with his suicide, which is also horrific. You have another suicide
and also
with
kind
Kurt,
of tied to substances,
and all of them are,
Yeah.
And so, but I don't know what it was about Scott. I felt in a very similar way where I'm like, why are you pissing this all away? I don't recall having a similar emotion about that with Kurt. I'm sure people did. I certainly was saddened, but I'm much more mature at the point when Chris Cornell passes, where I'm kind of like,
Yeah.
it's a life giving music to the world. And it's just so unfortunate that those things happened in that space.
Yeah.
Taylor Hawkins, of course, as a drummer, like you go down the list of people and you just go, man, there's just so many great talents in that time that are lost. But I definitely was hard on Scott for sure.
You may remember this more than me, so I'll ask you, but do you feel like maybe the way that he was portrayed in the media might have had an influence on that? Because I feel like the narrative around Cornell or with like Kurt Cobain,
Mhm.
was like that it was this mental health battle,
Mhm.
or Chester, you know,
Yeah. Yeah, same.
it's like, you know, it's this battle with depression and anxiety,
Mhm.
and that eventually brought them to this place where, you know, they felt like that was the only recourse,
Necessary.
perhaps.
The trappings of fame,
Yeah.
I guess, and
Um,
the overwhelming success that none of them, I think, anticipated having happen,
yeah.
you know?
So those stories always seem to get painted in this sort of like sad story column, whereas I feel like with
Mm.
Scott, it was painted more of like rock stars from a previous generation, where it was more of like
Mhm.
a living in excess sort of story,
Yeah.
as opposed to maybe like fighting demons. You know, Lane being another great example of someone who's
Mm.
painted as the tortured artist who struggled to find ways to cope with their life, whether that
Mhm.
had been the fame or just their own demons and darkness. Uh, I don't feel like that's the story that gets told with Scott, and
Mhm.
I'm sure that that is part of the story. But it seemed like it was always painted more as like, I don't know, just the guy who couldn't get a grip and liked to party too much, and
Yeah.
you know,
I also don't think that STP ever got the critical pass that those other bands did, and it's kind of it's unfortunate to me because I think we talked about this the other day. It's like I don't feel like David Coverdale was Robert Plant, but I can
mm,
promise you in the time that I'm growing up in which David was pretty big, that there was a lot of people that were like, he's a Robert Plant clone. I'm not taking Whitesnake seriously because it's just
mm,
another Led Zeppelin ripoff. So
yeah,
STP becomes like, oh, it's just another grunge band. They're never going to be as good as Soundgarden or Alice in Chains or Nirvana, blah, 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 blah. They're not
right,
that band. They weren't that band, and they definitely have a ton of musicianship in there. But I think in the moment when all of this is sort of breaking, there are people that kind of got caught in the crosshairs of that. I've talked to you about this before,
yeah.
and I know you're not a massive fan of Bush. You don't have a lot of familiarity with them beyond a
I
few
just haven't
hits and
listened
so
to him
forth.
much.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I think like that's another one that's like Gavin Rossdale, like in that band, they were just in the moment when they're coming out critically, they just get laughed away. It's like these guys just want to be Nirvana. Silverchair, that's another one. They just kind of like, come on, guys. They felt like it was an A&R answer to the wave of grunge bands.
Mm, yeah.
And so a lot of people never took them seriously. So I think what I'm getting to is with Scott, you already have this sort of painted like no one's taking us seriously, even though our audiences and our fans love our music and we're getting tons of radio play and all that. Critically, no one's ever given them a pass. And then it's almost kind of like wanting to watch the train wreck. It's very similar. I'll give Robert Downey Jr.
Mm,
You're just caught in his train wreck, and you just the press and all of that stuff. You just constantly feeding you that this person just can't figure it out, and they're squandering. This is an Oscar-winning
yeah.
actor
Right.
squandering his talent away, being an idiot, being a Hollywood elite idiot with his drugs and his party and all that. And Scott falls into the same thing. And I just think
Yeah.
a lot of people, I really wanted to root for Scott later, um, like I did with Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah.
Like I just wanted them to find the other side of it. And for him, for Robert Downey, he did. Scott didn't make it there. And so many of the other artists that we talked about didn't make it to that space, but they left back an incredible amount of music, and something that was really good. I do want to mention this is an interesting transition. You think about this as a band, like if you and I are in a band, and let's say you weren't the singer fell prey to this stuff and ultimately succumbed to his demons or their demons. We're a band. We wanted to keep going and we want to keep making music. And I think so many of the people we talked about have tried to do that. You think of Alice in Chains, they
Mhm.
go on with Willem Duvall, who's
Yeah.
an incredible singer. And so, do you get mad at Jerry and the rest of the band for trying to put another singer in front of them? Do you get mad at the DeLeo brothers and Eric Kretz for putting Jeff Gutt as a new singer? I mean, Jeff certainly has a Weiland type thing about him. You go back to Neil Schon and Jonathan Cain and these guys from Journey, and they bring a guy who they basically heard on an audition tape, I think, and
Yeah.
he was an incredible Asian singer. Sounded a lot like Steve Perry, and they're like, okay, let's try this. Let's see if it works. So bands have proven to be successful, but I do still think there's a group of people out there that are like, you're just out for the money, and it's like I don't really feel that way. I
Yeah.
feel like the band, like, it's not our fault that the guy fell prey to this. We still love making music, but I do think that people get very bitter about other artists going and singing for the band, like Sublime with Rome. That's another example. I mean, there's countless examples of this now. Scott Stapp, I was just about to get to. Creed, I mean, he doesn't pass away, but Creed becomes uber
Yeah.
successful. He
Right.
goes through his things, some demons that he's got going on. He
Mhm.
kind of falls into a mental health place. The band somewhat dissolves, and then they come back as Alter Bridge with again. And I'm come around now to not hating on Scott the way that I used to, because I was just caught in the same thing. Like, this band is uber successful and ridiculous, and I don't want to love them. My punk rock aesthetic was like, nope, they become too big. They don't get a pass for me. I'm tired of hearing their music every single second I turn around.
If they're super popular, they can't actually be good.
They can't
They
actually be
must.
good,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I'm not going to give any love to that whatsoever. I did also feel like you are a cheap imitation of Pearl Jam to me. That's completely unfair. And again, to any Creed fans out there, I've come around to appreciate what they were doing at the time. But at the time when that's coming out, remember, I'm growing up through that
Yeah.
and I'm living it. So I am not a fan of that band. When I hear Alter Bridge, which you turned me on to many years later, I'm like, wait, this is the same band?
Yeah.
Well, this guy
Yeah.
is incredible singer, and I had learned about Miles through Slash and the Snake Pit era, and then the Conspirators and all that. You know, when Miles coming out and singing, I'm like, this guy's a incredible singer. And you're like, you should check out this band Alter Bridge, and I'm like, cool. And again, you led with that. You didn't say necessarily this was Creed, and now they're this band. So I take
Yeah.
it on the merits of, oh, I like Miles Kennedy. Let me hear this band, and I hear
It
a
wouldn't
couple
have been
songs,
fair
and
of
I'm
me
like,
to hand you that
no,
baggage, you know.
no. So that AB3
Yeah.
record, which I know is like your favorite one, I think you
Yeah.
started me with that record, and I'm like, holy crap, this is a really good band. They're heavy, incredible singer who also plays guitar. They're really good. And you're like, oh yeah, by the way, this was Creed
Yeah.
without
Yeah.
Scott Stapp, and I'm like, well, I can get behind this, you know. And they're like, Tremonti and all the guys, it's the same music. Like, you go back and listen to Creed, it's still heavy. There's heavy songs in
Yeah.
there,
Creed is
you
very
know.
heavy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You just didn't catch it because a lot of the songs that got played were the arms wide open and, you
Yeah.
know, 6 feet or whatever that song is called.
Yeah. One
Um,
last breath and
One Last
higher
Breath
and
Higher.
yeah.
Yeah. And so some of those didn't feel to me as heavy. And I think there were bands around that time for me also that were like, Live is another one that, again, no offense to them, they wrote great music. I was just not a fan. Candlebox was another one that was in that same place. So when you start seeing those bands kind of popping up at a bit of the tail end of the grunge firework, if you will,
Yeah.
and then Creed kind of comes at the end of that in like the 98, 99 era,
Yeah.
I'm done with the whole thing. I've already put it to rest. So I am not going to, you're not awakening me for any of it at that point. So it's taken me a long time to come back around. Anyway, all that to say is, do you feel that it's right for the band to keep going on with a different singer, or do you feel like it's a cash grab?
It's a case by case basis. I mean, it I understand why people would not want a band to continue. As a fan, I could get that. I would have had a very different opinion a few years ago, probably, but I don't know. It's like, if it's a cash grab or not, it's hard for you to know as a fan because that's personal intention. So I don't know. I mean, I feel like I like what Alice in Chains has done post Lane Staley, and it doesn't erase the Lane era. And I feel like they've done a lot to honor that. You know, same for STP. I really like I don't know the name of the singer they got after Scott, but
Jeff Gut or Goot.
Jeff.
I don't know if someone could correct me on that one.
Yeah.
But Jeff Goot, yeah.
But still, I mean, I think they only did one full record that I can recall, but it's really good. It's really good. And so I don't know. I mean, the alternative is saying, okay, well, there's problems no matter how you try to address it. And I think people will be upset no matter what you do. And I think especially probably the more successful a band is, the more people are going to get upset about it. Now there are certain singers that are such a generational talent that it's like, I don't know if you should try to go on, but if you are successful and you're successful, like Soundgarden's a good example of like, Chris was not just a generational talent of a singer, because he was, but he was also really bizarrely creative in a super unique way. And so it's not just replacing his singing, but it's also going, well, if you're going to make new music, I don't know that you can replace that. Now, you know, maybe they do find someone who can tap into that thing and they still create good music. I'm not saying that that's their plan. I mean, I have no idea, but I could see that's kind of bigger shoes to fill.
Yeah.
And that's not to diminish the other people that we mentioned. So it's weird, right? It's like, if you're successful, people are going to get upset no matter what you do. If you stop, people are upset. If you keep going, people are upset. You can pull the move of saying, okay, well, we're just going to create a new band name so we don't have the baggage of the old band.
Right.
So sure, but then you're also leaving behind all the important music that you made. And so that doesn't feel right for a lot of bands, I think, is going, well,
yeah. Did Alter Bridge ever cover Creed songs? I don't know this, so I don't
think
this is
so.
a new one for me. I don't know if they ever did. Maybe. I don't recall.
I've never heard them do a Creed song.
Yeah.
They always kept those things very separate.
Very separate, yeah. Like they're two different bands.
Yeah, but I mean, it might also be a different thing if Scott had passed away. Maybe that they look at that differently.
Sure.
You know, because as it is now, they always, if they want to do Creed, they just go back on the road with Creed. In fact, I think they're working on a new record right now.
Yeah,
putting out a new record.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. I think it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of scenario for bands. I think if it's a cash grab, shame on you. But also, if that's how you make your livelihood and you need to make money, then as much as we would all, myself included, I used to be like such an idealist. And I still am. But, you know, especially when you're young, you want everything to be so honest. And so, I don't know, like, you want it to just be for the art and nothing else.
Right,
it's like,
right.
There does come a reality of, like, you know, if you've got a family and you've got, you know, a number of responsibilities, people who rely on you, and you're in a position where you need to make money, and you have this band that if you go out and do a tour and another record, like, people are going to be into it, and that's your main motivation, is like, well, I need to make some cash. It is a little bit hard to throw shade at that, especially when you can easily just keep your money as a fan and say, well, I'm not going to buy into it because it's not my thing. So I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying people should go out there with that intention, but I also do find it a little bit harder to throw stones now than when I was younger. And I think when I was younger, I was probably too keen to throw a stone at everything, assuming
Yeah.
that
Oh yeah.
most thing, being kind of really cynical about people's intentions and, all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
It's like, and you're right, because certain bands you just go, if Chris and Dave immediately came out a year or two after Kurt's death and they try and find a new singer, I feel like that would have blown up in their face. So for Dave to separate out, take some time, and then come back doing Foo Fighters, that makes sense. And he builds his own
Yeah.
brand by
Right.
doing that. Chris wanted to get away from it, and does his own thing. If you're Soundgarden, maybe enough time has passed that you feel like, okay, if we're going to try this again, okay, what does that look like? Could we do it? You know, the perfect example, I think, most currently for us right now is Linkin Park. You talked about Chester earlier.
Yeah.
They take a decent hiatus, probably 8 years or so, maybe longer. I'm not quite getting the dates correct, but I think it was 2017, 2018 when Chester passes.
Sounds right.
2024, they come back with Emily Armstrong now, which to me was a smart. I think I even commented to you about that. Once I first heard a couple songs, I'm like, this is a smart choice. And it makes sense. A new audience can discover them. Maybe you don't have a lot of people because with enough of that time passed, people have grown up. People that might have been in their teens are now in their mid 20s.
Yeah.
And they're kind of have a bit more of a respect and understanding. They're not going to be going like, how dare you try and find somebody to replace the amazing Chester? I don't care if it's female, not female, how on
Well,
earth would you,
it was
you know,
really smart to go with someone who's different, though,
completely though. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that to me, that's the smartest thing that they did is saying, like, we're not gonna go try to find a caricature of Chester
No. Right.
or someone who like is gonna imitate him. It's like, no, just
Mhm.
find somebody else who fits in with what you do.
Right.
That brings a different element to the band. So you can think
Yep.
of it as a different era of the band,
Mhm.
and then in
Mhm.
that way, it's easier to wrap your head around too.
Yeah. That's kind of how I felt about Willem with Alice in Chains is like, you know, he has a different thing and a different characteristic to the songs, and it feels good. And then doing a full record with him, you start to get used to him. And they've been together now doing that thing for quite some time, you know. So they've had a bit of time to be able to kind of get used to that. But then you also have bands.
Yeah, I mean, Check My Brain is awesome.
That's a great tune.
It's so good. It's
Yeah.
so good.
And to
Yeah.
come back after a hiatus and no one's thinking that anything's going to happen, and you drop that record, um, and that song chorus, and you're like, "Whoo, okay, this is great." And obviously,
Yeah,
Jerry
they're
writes
back.
a lot, and he writes a lot of lyrics too. So you feel like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, it's going to have an Alice in Chains thing about it because it's coming from the guy that wrote most of it. But hearing William sing, and no, he also plays guitar too with the band sometimes. So that to me was also pretty smart. I'm like, yeah, he's not going to be Lane. It's not going to be that. And of course, there's people on every single video or any kind of social media thing you want to look. They're going to continue to be haters, if you will.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
But
But you can't
I think
escape that.
no,
So
you're
it
never
also
going to
can't
escape
be a
that.
reason to not do something is because people are going to
No.
hate on. It's like people are going to hate on. The better something is, the more people are going to hate on it.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
just the reality. And
Well,
I think part of what makes this all so situational too is it depends on what the ratio of contributions are from that particular
mhm,
member of the band.
mhm,
Like Alice in Chains is a good example where Jerry is and kind of always has been the main, like he has an outsized level of contribution to what that band sounds like compared to anybody else in the band.
Yep.
But like if the Heartbreakers went out and tried to replace Tom Petty, it's like, what's even the point of this? Because the guy who wrote all the songs is gone. He wasn't just the singer, he was the chief songwriter.
Yeah.
And one of the greatest to ever write songs. So it's kind of like, well, like what it's hard to draw that line, but some bands are more equal in how much people contribute, and so it might be easier to absorb and reallocate, contributions versus some, it's like, I don't know if it's a good idea to try to replace that person because they kind of were that thing, it's like it doesn't even make sense to call it Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers if Tom Petty's not in the band,
right. Yeah. That's that brings me up to another thought about that, but it's like, I've seen so many iterations of this, and I don't know maybe why I think about that, but I'll go to an obvious one that is Van Halen. We've talked a lot about singers, most of the ones we've talked about recently, and of course, just honoring Scott and 10 years of being gone. We've talked about a lot of singers that have passed away. Scott Stapp being an exception to that.
Yeah.
And I'll talk about the more obvious one. In our last podcast, we talked about, the whole Coverdale Page record. And I was talking about how I remember just friends and people, and the general consensus of this is like, okay, number one, you do a song on your last Whitesnake record that sounds like Kashmir.
Yeah.
And then you go right out of that and end up doing a solo project with the main songwriter, one of the main songwriters in Led Zeppelin. Like, what is this? So I go like, at the point in which there's a split and a rift in the Van Halen camp, and Dave wants to continue to do sort of the campy cover tune sort of vibe that he had and continue with that sort of showman thing. Eddie's getting into keyboards again and getting into that sound. And 1984 is a tough record for them to finish. So by the time they kind of get to the end of that, Dave's like, I don't know if I really want to do this anymore. And I think probably the brothers are feeling the same way.
Yeah.
He separates out, and then they're going to go and find another singer. And they're like, at that point, you have such a stature and an ego and a thing in the unit that is Van Halen that you go, okay, well, we just can't get any schlub to come in here and do this. Like, so I feel like part of it is like a middle finger back to David Lee Roth at that moment in time and going, okay, cool.
Yeah.
You think you're the boss of this whole band and you're leading us there. We're going to show you something. How about Sammy freaking Hagar coming and singing, who's already, by the way, an enormously established artist in his own right, who's had plenty of success from Montrose to his solo stuff. So it's not like he's just some idiot off the street that's going to maybe sound like David Lee Roth, right?
Yeah.
He's got enough street cred that it's like, okay, we're going to get somebody else. And then David goes, oh, okay, Eddie, cool. You think you're the only hotshot guitarist? No worries. Let me go ahead and get Stu Ham and Steve freaking Vai to play on my solo stuff, right? So I'm going to have two exceptional musicians. Billy Sheehan. Sorry, I said Stu Ham. Yeah. But you're going to have these two guys playing on the record, right? So it's like he's going to go and build his own thing that's just as talented of artist, if you will. And that whole period to me was so both irritating and confusing, but also it was just, you could totally feel that it was born out of competitiveness. It's kind of like Mustaine getting kicked out of Metallica, and his whole entire band was built off of a giant middle finger to that whole thing. And he's proven himself to be successful, yada, yada, yada. But there again, in the moment in which Sammy comes in, it's like, okay, if he's really going to pull this off, they got to bring it. And so there's a pressure for the band to really pull off a record that is coming off the heels of 1984, for God's sake, and a fever pitch of records for them that led to that.
Yeah.
For David Lee Roth, the pressure is I can't have some idiots that don't play nearly as good as one of the best guitars in the world at that time and still. So I got to find somebody to be able to hold up and be at that level that Eddie was. And Steve's obviously a great choice, you know?
Yeah.
So to me, that's kind of an interesting little thing. And then, of course, you have the two camps of, are you a Van Hagar fan or a Van Halen fan? I've come to love them both now in different measure, but I've definitely gone through the ringer about that in my time.
Yeah.
I'll go back and forth. Sometimes I love the bombastic nature of Van Halen with David, and other times I just love the craftsmanship and songwriting that came when they were with Sammy.
Yeah.
And those two can cross paths now and feel like they can be in harmony as a collective thing that Van Halen did. And funny enough, to bring it back to Gary Cherone, I still don't have any love for that record, that Van Halen 3
Yeah.
record. I've really tried to get behind it. And Gary and Extreme, interestingly enough, to tie it all into a bow, Extreme was like their own sort of version of Van Halen, a virtuosic guitar player, a bombastic singer, an incredible backing band and rhythm section with Pat
Yeah.
Badger, and I can't think of the drummer's name right now. Sorry about that. But they're kind of their own thing that's very much like a Van Halen to me. So it made sense that they're going to hire Gary to play as a third sort of iteration when Sammy's out of the band, but that record fell flat on its face.
Yeah. I
And
always even
doesn't
forget
really
about
hold up.
that era completely.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
You know,
it's funny thinking about that competition, and I mean, any assumptions I make are just that, because it's hard to know what someone's real motivation is.
Mhm.
But I feel like the competitive nature was more from David than it was from the brothers, Van Halen brothers, because I kind of feel like if you're Van Halen and it's all about competition, you're going to find someone to out David's parts. You're going to find a replacement of him instead of going a different direction.
Mhm.
And I think for David, for as talented as he is, and for as much as he really had a huge amount to do with that early Van Halen sound, the band Van Halen sound, I'm still more partial to the early tunes from Van Halen, but I will admit that I think Sammy is a better singer than Dave.
Yeah.
But there's something about that early stuff that's just magical, and I love it. I love the playing. I love the production, even though the production gets better in the Sammy era. And, like they, Eddie builds his own studio and they really get to take their time, and all that stuff sounds better. I don't know, there's just something special that I really connect with. But anyway, that said, it makes me feel like David really didn't fully understand what made Van Halen special. He thought, hey, I can just get a hotshot guitar player and band, kind of like reducing what Eddie and the other two,
Michael and Alex.
Well, yeah, but like what the basically reducing what they brought to the table as just being a virtuoso, and not realizing that the brothers have something really special that they've developed through a lifetime of playing together, a certain feel, a certain sense of melody and rhythm. The Van Halen shuffle being a great example of that. You can't just plug in someone who's really talented, and I love Steve Vai. So, love Steve Vai. So this isn't throwing shade at him, but it's like you can't expect to just throw some great musicians together and assume that they are going to come up with the equivalent of what, you know, the Van Halen brothers had.
Right.
Uh, which is why now, as history has gone on, there is a debate about Van Halen versus Van Hagar, but no one talks at all about that solo record from Dave.
Well, there's 3 records, but
well, there you go. I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
I only knew about the one that has Yankee Rose on it.
Yeah,
and
the Yankee Rose and California Girls, another cover again.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
Just like Paradise on the Skyscraper record.
But it's like, the reason why anyone thinks about like Yankee Rose now, for example, is Steve Vai.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the other, like, and Billy Sheehan, but it's like it's the video and it's the making the guitar talk. It's not about the song, and it's not about Dave. I mean, there's probably some hardcore Dave fans out there who feel differently, but I feel like in general, in the echoes of the culture, you know, one has been completely forgotten and the other stands as competitive to the first era of the band. And you'll have people who choose David, and you'll have people who choose Sammy, and you'll have people who appreciate all of it. There weren't really anyone lining up anymore to listen to Dave's solo stuff. So that kind of tells you something about the whole endeavor, which is interesting, right?
Right.
And because I think at the core, one, that, you know, Dave, Alex and Eddie had their own special chemistry, but also they cared so deeply about crafting the songs. And Dave, I don't think I've ever gotten the feeling from listening to him that was as important to him. You know, the songs to him were just an opportunity for him to do his thing,
a vehicle for his showmanship. Yeah.
But they weren't the end. They were, you know, the means.
Yeah.
And I think for Eddie and for Alex, the songs were the end. Like, that was the whole point and what they were trying to do. And then, so now, as time has gone on, that has shown to have more staying power, you know, than the other.
Well, I do. It's weird to me too, because I don't know, I feel like when they inherit Sammy, and of course they drop 5150, which is a monster album, and to me can hold up, even though people are going to blast me for saying that. I do think on the songwriting and the craftsmanship that are on that record, it holds up with the other 5 records that they did prior. Because here's the thing, like, if you're a Van Halen fan and you're going to tell me that 5150 isn't as good as Diver Down, you're crazy. Like, that's a flop record to me that has a ton of covers on it. And there's some great songs.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's not Fair Warning. It's not Women and Children First. It's not, I even think like 5150 could live in the space with Van Halen too, as also being strong. There's just really great songs, and they were all buzzing and finding a vibe with one another and being excited to think. I do think that Eddie and Alex and Michael even are probably going, because Dave in the early years, I mean, Dave was an instrumental part of getting them to all their shows and club, you know, all the backyard parties and sort of all that stuff. He was a big figurehead in the band, regardless of the fact that you just have some hotshot musicians.
Yeah.
So not having him in the band, I'm sure there's a point where they're like, okay, what do we do? Right? How are we going to get this to work? And then you have Sammy, and they're like, okay, let's see how this feels. And they get in the studio together, and it just starts clicking. And of course, you have Sammy, who can hold up and play guitar and be a good rhythm guitar player and a solo guitar player if need be. So you earn a little bit there, and you get better songmanship and some other things happening in the band to kind of level up. But I don't know. I would say for any really strong person in the David camp, it's hard not to listen to 5150 and say, okay, this is a really great record. I mean, and a really great singing,
Yeah.
all of it, top to bottom to me. There's not a bad song on the record to me.
Yeah.
As it gets later, I do think some of that spark wanes a little. Um, they of course get a ton of videos and stuff during this time as well, and so there's a lot going on, and also having to chase sort of the dragon of grunge music and things that were going on towards the end of that era, like the Balance album, I think, and maybe OU812,
Yeah.
probably in that space where they're maybe on the tail end of their rainbow, if you will.
Yeah.
But certainly better to me than David's solo stuff as a collection. Yeah, for sure. And that's even given the talent in the band, because you're right. I do think it was more of a, well, I'm going to upstage you and get this virtuosic player who played with Frank Zappa and all this stuff. And we're going to have all these great musicians and we're just going to have a great thing, just like Van Halen. And it didn't really manifest at that level at all.
No. No, because
You
it kind
know,
of misses the point a little
Mhm.
bit, I think. But also
Yeah,
this whole subject, I I know people enjoy uh debating something like this is a debate that's been going on forever.
forever. The dawn of
Um
man.
but I also think it's kind of it's a little bit of a dumb debate also. And the reason why I say that is it's like if I ask you, do you like steak or chicken better? And you say steak, then
Mm.
that has to mean that you hate chicken.
Right. 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 Right.
And so I think instead of going into it and going, well, which one is better?
Mm-hmm.
You should just go in and go, do I like this?
Mm-hmm.
Do I enjoy the Sammy era? Like if I don't think about it as, do I like this better?
Mm.
Is this better than Panama? Like that's the wrong way to be thinking about it.
Right.
You know,
Right.
the way to think about it is just, do I enjoy this? And if you do, then it doesn't
Then
matter
who
if you like
cares?
it
Right.
better or worse. And probably one day you'll like it more than another day you'll like it less. Because that's just how that goes, right? Like
Yeah.
your tastes are not a fixed thing.
Right. Right.
They're constantly evolving and changing. It depends on your mood. And some days you really want that classic thing that you've heard a million times, and other days
Mm-hmm.
you feel like I just need something fresh.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
I need to experience something I haven't experienced before. So, you know, people get caught up in these things like they are fixed and like that debate even means something. Is like when it comes to anything artistic, the only person that loses if you have judgments about stuff is you. Because you miss out on the opportunity to experience something really great because you were too fixated on what it's not instead of what it
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
you know, or trying to
Yeah.
quantify it or trying to compare it. It's like that's a fool's errand.
Mm-hmm.
It's a total fool's errand. Now, if you just don't like Sammy, fair, then hey, you know, pick the David era, but
Sure.
yeah, the whole debate is kind of funny when you break it down
Mm-hmm.
because it's
Mm-hmm.
like I mean, this is not sports. We're not crowning a champion at the end of this. You know, it's
Mm-hmm.
not a playoff bracket. So, do you like it or do you not like it?
Yeah.
You know?
Going on and going back to the Velvet Revolver and GNR thing, it was a very similar thing. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, we're not gonna,
Oh, it always is. Yeah.
you know what I mean? It's like you have to wonder, okay, and I mean, in the moment, I'm just telling you how I lived it. It's like Velvet Revolver, really, a gun in the color of a rose. Okay, right. So you want me to take this seriously? You know exactly what you're doing, right? That's how my head is. I'm
Yeah.
not even
Yeah.
going to give it a shot. I'm just like,
Yeah.
guys, come on. Like,
It's
are we being
human
serious
nature.
now? Right? Or, like this feels exactly what it's like, okay, well, we can't call ourselves this thing because maybe there's legality there and maybe Axel owns a name or who knows, God
Yeah.
knows what.
Right.
So we're going to have to figure something else out, but we want to make sure that everyone knows that it's us just with this other singer that is also well known. So we're going to do this thing and we're going to call it this thing,
Yeah.
and then they'll go out, which I think is really special. Like you see Scott going out and doing It's So Easy and stuff off of Appetite,
Mhm. Yeah.
because, and this is like with the Contraband album, I guess. Is that the first one? I think it was, right? The first Velvet Revolver record. I
That's the first one. I think Libertad is the second one, isn't it?
I believe so. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I can't
but
remember.
anyway, going out, I see them at like the K Rock Weenie Roast or whatever. It's like that was a big deal. It was sort of their coming out party, if you will. And it was a huge festival show. It was in L.A. And I think they were the headliner of that show. I remember him coming out, and it's like, again, I'm the arms crossed, like, what the f is this going to be? Let's just
Yeah.
and of course, I'm just going to be
Guilty
irritated.
until proven innocent.
Yeah, it's like, okay, Scott, don't screw this up because I love
Yeah.
Guns N' Roses. But are you guys also going to do STP songs? Because that's also weird to me too. It's like, I just didn't know any of what to think about any of that stuff, and it was happening so much during that moment. Like STP goes and does a band called Army of Anyone with Richard Patrick from Filter, who goes and sings, who's also been a train wreck from, alcohol and stuff like that prior to. I'm like, oh God, what is happening in the world right now of music? Like, is everyone just grasping to make money, continue? But now I've kind of accepted and I go, look, Velvet Revolver is a good band. They were, for what they did and what they were doing, I appreciate it. Audio Slave, good band. Certainly appreciate what they did. I love both Hagar and Roth era Van Halen somewhat equally because it goes back and forth. And like you said, do I like
They're
them?
just
Yeah,
different.
they're just
They're
different.
just different. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know that the person's writing the music there are in different places, different things, trying to do different stuff, but you have an appreciation for it and it doesn't bother me. And of course, like I mentioned with Gary Sharon, I'm a big Extreme fan. I didn't like Gary with Van Halen. It didn't make sense to me. And that's strange to say, given that I thought of Extreme as like a newer version of Van Halen when they came out.
Yeah.
So it was like, all of it was just kind of weird, and living some of that was sort of weird at the time. I think, to put a bow tie on all of it, it's like, I don't fault anybody for doing it anymore, regardless of their reasonings. I think the bands deserve to feel like they can continue to go on and make music. They don't often have to. I mean, the thing that got them popular that would still draw an audience so they can still be heard and seen is going to be on the thing that they did. So it's a huge risk to do Alter Bridge when everyone knows you as Creed, right?
Yeah,
But
definitely.
they became successful in their own right, and that's amazing. You know, Other people like Stone Simple Pilots are going to go, we kind of want the thing that Scott brought, and so we're going to look for that. And again, people might feel a certain type of way about that, but it works for them. So good for you. Alice in Chains, different with Willem singing than Lane, but they can still pull off that stuff because Jerry really is the core person in that whole band. So
Yeah.
and he's also a singer, so you're going to get, 30-40% of the songs he sings himself, you know.
Yeah, and the whether bringing in a new person works or not is ultimately like subject to the opinion of the listener. So, it's like you might get a collective decision that most people feel one way or another, but I mean, it doesn't, none of that really matters unless it matters to you.
Right.
You
I would
know,
tell you.
if you're Jerry Cantrell and you're going, well, I mean, we're still packing clubs and we're still able to do what we want to do, but some people are mad about it. And so what? So what? Those people can be mad. They don't have to listen. They don't have to show up. Yeah. Well, sadly, it appears that we will not get to hear Kev's final thoughts on our discussion. His internet went out, so we're going to wrap this one here. Thank you all for listening. We appreciate it very deeply. If you made it this far, hopefully you enjoyed the discussion. Check us out on social media. Depending on where you're listening to this, we're on YouTube, we're on all the podcast channels. We have a website as well, newly on Instagram. So, find us, hit us up if you've got a topic you'd like us to discuss or a guest to have on. Much more coming your way very soon. So thank you all, and we will talk to you soon.